Somewhere in the world, right now, a heart is beating for the last time. And here's the strange part. The moment it stops, you don't. Not all at once. Death isn't a switch that flips. It's a process, one that unfolds over seconds, minutes, and in some ways, for hours after the line goes flat. So let's do something we almost never do. Let's look carefully, honestly, at what actually happens in your body the moment you die. We treat death as a single instant, a time written on a certificate. But biologically, that instant is a fiction we agreed on for convenience. When your heart stops, doctors call it clinical death. No heartbeat, no breathing, no blood moving. But your cells haven't gotten the message yet. Most of them are still alive, still holding their structure, still full of the chemistry of a living thing. What actually kills a cell isn't the stopped heart. It's what the stopped heart stops delivering. Oxygen. Every cell in you runs a tiny power plant, burning oxygen to make energy. Cut the supply, and those power plants don't explode. They just wind down. And different tissues wind down at very different speeds. Your brain, the most demanding organ you own, is also the most fragile. It burns through oxygen faster than anything else, and it has almost nothing in reserve. Skin cells, cartilage, cells that ask for very little. They can quietly hang on for hours. So in those first moments, you are not one thing dying. You are a whole city going dark neighborhood by neighborhood at its own pace. And the first lights to go out are in the place where you live. The brain has no fuel tank. It depends second by second on the blood arriving right now. So when the flow stops, the countdown is brutally short. Within about 10 seconds of losing blood flow to the brain, measurable electrical activity begins to collapse, and consciousness is lost. This is why a person whose heart stops faints almost immediately, not slowly, but fast. But the lights go out doesn't mean empty. Something remarkable seems to happen in the dying brain, a final surge. As neurons run out of energy, they can no longer hold back the charge they normally keep in careful balance. They release it in a single, spreading wave. Scientists have a name for it, a wave of depolarization, sometimes called the brain's final wave. And in the seconds around it, researchers have recorded something almost poetic. In 2013, a study at the University of Michigan found that the brains of dying rats produced a brief, intense burst of high-frequency gamma waves, the same kind of activity linked in living brains to conscious awareness and memory. For a few seconds, the dying brain wasn't quieter than normal. It was more active. Then, in 2022, something no one had planned for. Doctors were recording the brain activity of an 87-year-old patient being treated for a fall when his heart unexpectedly stopped. For the first time, an EEG captured the human brain in the act of dying, and in the 30 seconds around the final heartbeat, they saw the same signature, a surge of gamma waves, the rhythms of memory, recall, and dreaming. The scientists were careful, and we should be too. This is one patient, one damaged, elderly brain. No one can tell you what, if anything, it felt like from the inside. But it raises a haunting possibility the researchers themselves named, that in its final moment the brain may replay something, a last recall. The old idea that your life flashes before your eyes suddenly has a mechanism worth investigating. Not proof, but a real, testable question. Here's what makes this so hard to study. That short window is exactly when doctors are fighting hardest to bring someone back. And people do come back, millions of times across the world through CPR. Some of them remember something. The largest studies of these experiences, led by resuscitation researcher Sam Parnia and his colleagues, have documented that a fraction of people revived after cardiac arrest report lucid awareness, and in rare cases, memories that seem to line up with real events during the time their heart was stopped. One much-discussed case described a patient recalling details from the room during a period when, by every clinical measure, they were unconscious. We have to be honest about the edge of the map here. These are difficult to verify, memory is unreliable, and the brain can construct vivid experiences from fragments. No study has ever shown consciousness surviving without a brain. What the research does suggest is subtler and honestly more interesting, that the border between conscious and gone is not a clean line, and that awareness may fade more gradually and later than we assumed. While that drama plays out in the brain in seconds, the rest of the body begins a slower, stranger journey, one that follows rules so reliable that forensic scientists read them like a clock. The body begins to cool, roughly a degree or so each hour, until it matches the room. Without a heartbeat, blood settles under gravity, staining the lowest parts of the body a deep red. And a few hours in, the muscles seize, rigor mortis, as the cellular fuel that lets muscle relax finally runs out. It's not tension, it's the opposite. It's what happens when a muscle can no longer let go. A day or so later, as those same cells break down, the stiffness quietly releases again. Inside the cells, the cleanup crews turn on their owner. Enzymes that once ran the cell's daily maintenance begin, without oxygen to regulate them, to digest the cell from within, a process called autolysis. And the vast community of bacteria that lived peacefully in your gut, your whole life, is suddenly unsupervised. They spread outward through the body, a wave scientists have named the Thanatomicrobiome, the microbiome of death. But here is the fact that genuinely stunned researchers. In 2017, scientists studying gene activity after death found that hundreds of genes didn't switch off when the organism died. They switched on. Genes involved in inflammation, in stress, even in early development, some going quiet only after a full day or more. In a very real, molecular sense, parts of the body don't get the news for a long time. The machinery keeps running, keeps responding, long after the person is gone. So what do we actually learn from all this? That the thing we call the moment of death isn't a moment at all. It's a cascade. Brain, then heart, then tissue, then cell, then gene, each on its own clock, each letting go in its own time. And that changes something. We tend to picture life as a flame that's either lit or snuffed out. But biology tells a different story. You are not a single flame. You are trillions of tiny lives cooperating. And when the whole falls silent, the parts go on flickering for a while, unaware. There's something almost reassuring in that. The line we're so afraid of turns out to be blurry, gradual, and profoundly physical. Not a door slamming, but a room slowly going quiet. And the same fragility that makes the brain the first thing to fade is exactly what makes your conscious life, this ordinary Tuesday, this breath, so vanishingly rare and so worth paying attention to. That's the big picture. Not that death is nothing to fear, but that being this awake, in a universe that mostly isn't, is the strangest and most precious thing about you. If this made you see something ordinary in a new way, that's the whole point of this channel. Every week, we take one big question and follow it all the way down. So subscribe and let's keep looking at how it all actually works.